You know what it was giving? Odyssey. It was giving mini boss. I'm 100 pages in and I'm having a breakdown. Benji, no. And she's blonde. And 6 is blonde. They're the same. Today's a very exciting day. It is May 20th and the official release date of The Knight and the Moth by Rachel GILLIG, the first book in her new series. I'm so excited for this release because the Shepherd King duology by Rachel GILLIG came out of nowhere for me last year. It was one of those books that got really viral on TikTok that I was like, I don't know, it might be one of these new kind of romantasy that don't have any depth, any heart, any yearning to them. Cut to me sobbing at 4 a.m. as I finished the book, and I still think about it today. In fact, I'm actually doing a reread of that duology with my mom currently, and I am, now that I'm like showing it to somebody else, seeing some of the faults in it, that it's like not perfect, whatever. So I'm trying not to overhype the Knight and the Moth experience, but I'm so excited. And so to celebrate, because this is, I think, my second most anticipated book of the entire year, I'm gonna treat myself to a physical copy of the book. So let's head over to Barnes & Noble.
Hello. I'm looking for a book that I think was published today.
Okay.
It's called The Knight and the Moth.
I got the book! I gotta say, it's kind of sick to have such a beautiful cover. Oh my god. Like, foil title. Oh, let's see if it has an embossed... It does! Oh my god, wait, that's gorgeous. That is so pretty. I'm so excited. My only plan for today is to read this book. It's a Rachel GILLIG holiday in my household. So as soon as I rip these damn stickers off the cover, we're gonna dig in. It's time to begin. And look at how gorgeous she is. Come on. I'm not gonna stop talking about it, but I am gonna try and chill myself out a little bit because I need to not be overhyped. Just gonna slip this off, get a little more comfortable. I'm nervous to even see the first sentence. Okay. I'm gonna be chill. I'm gonna be chill and cool. I can't get over the end paper. It's so pretty. To the child in each of us yearning to be special, take my hand, you strange little creature, and together we shall walk beyond the wall. Oh my god, there's a map. Before the map interrupted me, I was gonna say that I do not know what this book is about. I'm assuming, literally based on the cover, I believe it's a romantasy, and based on the cover, I believe we have a knight and then a girl who is maybe the moth of some kind. And it is kind of giving me Heartless Hunter flashbacks because the girl main character in that series is called the Crimson Moth or something, but I don't know, whatever. Okay. Oh, there's a little, like, it's not a foreword, but it's something before the story. You know this story, Bartholomew, though you do not remember it. I'll tell it to you as best I can and promise to be honest in my tale-bearing. If I'm not, that's hardly my fault. To tell a story is in some part to tell a lie, isn't it? Immediately I have so many questions because 1, who's Bartholomew? 2, who's the writer? Is this a Last Great American Dynasty moment where this is somebody in the past and the story that we're about to read is the future of this castle? Or is this like the story about the author of this passage and Bartholomew? What's going on? Or maybe all of the above. I don't know. It is kind of giving like Rachel GILLIG just learned a bunch of new words and she was like, I gotta put these in the book. Trom's highest tor, Goin flowers, Narthex, chancel. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know those words. Hey, so I accidentally lied a little bit earlier. I had one thing that I needed to do today and it ended up taking the entire afternoon, so I've only read 1 chapter. So we're cracking open an 8:30 p.m. sugar-free Red Bull and we're locking down for the night. All you guys missed in the first chapter is that our main character, who I still don't know the name of, is one of 6 women at this cathedral, and they seem to be holy women that are called, okay, here's the thing, I don't know how to pronounce it, diviners or diviners. I'm gonna Google it, but it does bother me every time I read the word because I stop and I pronounce it both ways in my head. They are the only people at this church other than their abbess, who is the woman that kind of runs the church, I guess. But other than the 7 of them, and a bunch of stone gargoyles that are able to walk around and talk, the church is empty until the brand new king, who is this little 17-year-old boy with gold armor and a crown atop his head, comes to get his future read by the diviners. Diviners? The other thing of note in this first chapter is that one of the talking gargoyles in this cathedral has a habit of calling everybody and everything Bartholomew, which is the name that we heard of in the preface to the story. Rachel Gillig just sets up a gothic atmosphere like nobody else. Okay, I'm talking way too much because I've only read the first damn chapter. But we did have a quick interaction with the knight that I'm assuming is like the knight. More on that to come. It's time for lore drop. Lore drop. Lore drop. So the little boy king came to get his divination. Don't know if that's the right grammar. And through this ritual that the abbess holds and kind of puts our main girl through, we find out that there are 6 gods, each one ruling over a different area. Like there's one of water, one of forest, one of scholars, etc., etc. And little kids can drink from this special spring water and have dreams where they contact the gods. And so our girl was one of those kids, but they don't drink from the spring water, they drown in it. And it's just giving me serious leftover flashbacks with all of the repeated religious drownings. I just think Kevin would fit right in here. Our girl, who is actually named Sybil but is called Six, goes into this dreamlike state where she sees all of these different signs from the represented items of the 6 different gods. And the way that the item of the god is presented in her dream tells her whether or not the divination is good or bad. But there's definitely more to this dreamlike world that she's not exploring yet. And I just have a feeling we're gonna have to get into the details as we go. They are petty as fuck, both of them. The Knight and the Moth. I'm not gonna hurt anyone, you witless hunk of stone. Sorry, diviner, that was aimed at the gargoyle. I can see how you might be tempted to answer to that description. He is mean. Here's my thing, the only little tiny note bugging at me is like, really, this one knight shows up and says that this girl is no fun, and she's like, fine, I'm gonna break all the rules that I've followed for the last basically 10 years. And it's like, yeah, I would do the same thing, but also, girl, come on. So in one day, this annoying man became the reason she's breaking rules for the first time, became her drug dealer, and is like the first person I want to say that she's been interested in romantically in years, but it's the like she's not. It's real enemies situation where she's like, he's so annoying, but she's also like, yeah, and he's hot. This is a mess. This is such a mess. Six is kind of like really cool, magical girl, dreaming of the gods, following all the rules of her mommy, Miss Abbess, and also a little bit arrogant because her position as a diviner puts her above literally everybody except for the Abbess. Like, I think she says she's even higher up than the king in status, but she has no idea what the outside world is like because she's been at this cathedral for the last 10 years since she was a child, so the arrogance she has is like a little bit misplaced. On the other hand, our knight, who we now know is named Rory, seems to be very much against the magic and the diviners and the gods and this whole religion, really, because he knows a little too much about the real world. His whole thing is that he's like #real, and that also leads to him being stubborn and arrogant. So when I say clash, I mean clash. They are gnashing their dang teeth at each other. This is bad. This is bad. Even in the Shepherd King duology, my favorite part was like the magic system and the world building. And I didn't really care too much for the actual romance in either of the books. Rachel Gillig came to fucking play. She came to bat. She's serious about this. They have an inside joke. They hate each other and they have an inside joke already. And he saw her go off with the other night. By the way, nothing's happened. I'm on page 64, and this is the perfect amount of love interest presence that I like in my romances so far, because we know literally nothing about Rory and he's just kind of like the suggestion of a man. It's perfect. Really? We're barely 100 pages in and there's a who did this to you moment. I haven't read a successful who did this to you in, I think, literal years. Rachel Gillig, you are too good. Which one, diviner? Rory's voice was deathly calm. He looked over his shoulder at me. Which one marked up your face? This is why there has to be depth to tropes. I won't go on a whole rant, it's too late. Who did this to you is like the name of the trope, right? It doesn't have to be an exact quote. All he has to say is, which one, diviner? That's all it takes, a little bit of context, and then it hits different. The diviners are all going missing. The abbess is mad. Their faces are apparently messed up under the shrouds that they wear to cover their eyes. And Rory is here to save the day. And I need to go to bed. I was so close to going to sleep like 20 pages ago, but I just can't put it down. I can't put it down. What am I supposed to do? Literally, what am I supposed to do? Rory's about to fart. Rory's about to fight the gargoyles. Or fart. Oh, I feel so sick. Literally looking at the empty ice cream pint and popcorn bowl right next to me and Red Bull. I feel sick. Yeah, no duh. I really wanted to binge this book all in one go, but as I'm sure you could see, I got to the point where I was truly just unintelligible, and then I didn't put the book down. I read 50 more pages after that last clip, and then got to a scene where they were just talking about exposition of like the world and the magic, and I could not understand what was on the page anymore, and I had to put it down. So here we are again. I'm about to crack open another late night Red Bull so that we can get this party started and hopefully finish this book. I've been thinking about it all day. Genuinely, it's been painful. It's giving me that feeling where it's so stuck in my head that even when I'm away from the book, I'll be like, what was that awesome TV show I was watching? Was I watching something or listening to something? Oh, it was The Knight and the Moth. It was a book I was reading. So I cannot wait to get back into it, but I don't know what I said last night. I was only half alive, and we gotta be on the same page before we keep going, so let me make sure that we're all caught up. Okay, after the forbidden partying with the diviners and the knights, Rory ended up losing a bet, so he needed to get his divination read by 6, but that went really badly. Usually the diviners see the 5 different symbols of the gods, and then they can glean whether the reading is positive or negative based on what they see of those symbols, but this time, Little Miss 6 did not see any of the 5 symbols. She saw the symbol of the elusive 6th god, the moth. So she has no idea what's going on with that. We don't know either, but the next day, the little baby boy king and all of his knights left, and then one by one, every night, one of the diviners went missing until 6 was the only one left. These diviners have a really intense family connection where they're all around the same age, so they are each other's sisters, mothers, daughters, best friends, lovers. They are everything to each other. Our little Miss 6 is not very happy when Mother Abbess isn't doing anything to figure out where the other diviners have gone. So she takes it upon herself to go find the little boy king and ask him for help, but he's not home, so he sends Rory over to help her, and Rory breaks into her room in the middle of the night, of course. And this moment not only serves to set the two of them off on a grand adventure together, but it also reveals something to us that is very scary and magical. Because Rory has a physical, tangible item of the gods. One of the 6 items, he's got a little coin in his pocket that he can pull out and use to explode stuff and transport him and 6 through walls, and they disappear and they reappear. And 6 has no idea how this is possible, because if Rory is the god of the coin and that's why he has this item, then everything that she believes about the gods and her religion is false. And as a diviner, that would kind of be grounds for a full mental breakdown. So she's not gonna think about that right now. So the 2 of them, plus one of the gargoyles, the one who calls everybody Bartholomew, throwback to the preface before the book, they set off on an adventure to find the missing diviners. They run away from the cathedral and from the scary abbess mother lady, and they meet up with the little baby boy king, Benji, and another soldier woman named Maud, and then the 3 of them go off on their grand adventure, and we're left with a whole bunch of questions. Like, what's with the gods potentially being people in the real world? Is Rory a god? What about the abbess being a weird spring drinking control freak cult leader? And what about our girl 6 potentially being the moth? Is she a god? And we have no answers, just the knowledge that the Knight and the Moth are obsessed with each other, even though they don't get along. Side note, I cannot remember if I mentioned this, but something that is kind of important for a few different reasons is that the diviners all wear these shrouds around their eyes. They're kind of like opposite blindfolds, so everybody looking at the diviners cannot see what their eyes look like, but the diviners can see out of them pretty normally, except none of the diviners have seen themselves without the shrouds on either. But as the girl started to disappear, one of them said, "Hey, screw the rules, I want to see what I look like." She took off her shroud and was horrified at what she saw, but 6 didn't look, so we don't know what was going on there. And we don't know if 6 has experienced the same thing. Now that 6 has run away from the cathedral, she's really afraid that something has happened under there, so she doesn't want to take it off. And she's still kind of clinging on to her identity as a diviner. And then on the other hand, Rory really wants her to take it off because he wants to see what she looks like. He keeps like trying to make eye contact with her and getting so frustrated, but he can't. And he's also coming into this with a different outlook on the religion and the gods. We don't know a ton about, you know, his history and why he feels the way that he does. So he thinks that this is something that she's kind of been forced into and that she should take the shroud off and let go of that part of her life now that it is kind of over. But I wanted to make sure I brought it up because it's kind of become something important for both of their identities and like how they see each other and communicate with each other. I think this shroud is going to be kind of symbolic in their character arc. Side note, something I cannot stop thinking about, the dynamic between Rory, 6, and this gargoyle that they brought along with them, who does not want to be called a pet but is like kind of their pet, is exactly the same as Tangled. Side note, last one, I promise, but there's this dynamic that we have to talk about because Rory has a found family dynamic with the little baby king, Benji, and then Rory's like 26, and then this soldier lady, Maud, is in her mid-30s-ish, I think, and the 3 of them are besties linked, found family, forever bonded, and it has to be because of some sort of trauma they've endured together. But their dynamic is so perfect. Every interaction they have is layered with all of this history that you can just sense is there between them. It's done so well. It genuinely makes me want an entire prequel book just about the journey that the 3 of them have had together, because you know that it had to be crazy to make these 3 kind of random people so connected. Okay, it's time to read. So we've gotten our second lore drop because it turns out that the little king is on a quest of his own. He is trying to find the rest of the 5 magical items, like the coin that Rory has. So the little crew takes 6 and her gargoyle into this creepy scribe office where they fight this dude who has the magical endless ink pot in a battle of riddles. It was honestly very fun because you know what it was giving? Odyssey. It was giving mini boss. It was giving side quest adventure. And it was also confirmation to 6 that these items she thought were only symbols are actual physical things with magic. So after the fight, the little king Benji sits 6 down and explains to her this other version of the lore of their kingdom. The truth? What really is the truth? That's a question for later. But he tells her that the gods aren't real. There never were any gods. What actually happened is these 5 people wanted power. But instead of fighting each other to the death until only one could rule over them all, they ended up finding this 6th person, who we know as the Moth. And she instead gave them each their own magical items so that they would each have power and could kind of go their separate ways and rule over their own areas without conflict. This reveals a couple things to us. 6 might be the new Moth, now that she's the one in possession of the chisel and the hammer. And we now know that the people that mess with magic end up with stone eyes. So that might be what her fellow diviner saw when she took off her shroud. And that might be what's going on underneath 6's shroud. She might have literal rocks for eyes. Better than rocks for brains. The other big takeaway from this conversation is really that the system of the gods who are not really gods is a broken one. The abbess forces her diviners to perform for the common folk who will pay her the most money, and then she gives that money to the omens, capital O, who we used to know as the gods, and they also have power from the magical items that they possess. So the people are getting this false promise of faith that doesn't really exist, while the omens are extorting them for their own gain. And little baby Benji wants to turn things around. It seems like our girl 6 is feeling a little bit torn about the situation because she sees the problem with it, but she also doesn't love the thought of this 17-year-old boy taking all of these magical items for himself and like reshaping the kingdom into what he wants it to be. It's very interesting. We could go a lot of different ways here. We're still laying the groundwork. He doesn't even have to say a word. I couldn't look away. He does not care about anything going on except for 6. A jealous king. He's a jealous king. In the best way. Not anymore. Put your fucking helmet on. He's this cocky bastard. He's standing in the middle of fields, just won his little fight. All he sees her in a conversation, has to end the conversation immediately and beckon her to him with one finger. And then he has the gall to blush. Literally from, put your fucking helmet on, to, oh, I'm fitting you with armor. Like, this man needs to get a grip. He's fitting her for armor. She is going to be both the Knight and the Moth. She's flirting with him. She's flirting with Rory and she doesn't know that she just became both the Knight and the Moth. Whoa! Something changed. There's no going back from a comment like that. Oh my god. I haven't read Silver Elite, but I am kind of getting flashes to the line that I keep seeing everyone talking about. That's where the love interest says like, I've been a bad boy or something. If I didn't know about that going around right now, then I wouldn't be thinking about it in this moment, but unfortunately I am. Because almost out of nowhere, Rory says, I think you like that I'm a bad knight. I'm sorry, that's too much. I think you like that I'm a bad knight. I'm getting tired, so now you have to be over here like it's a sleepover. They started on their journey, and 6 keeps getting described as being like super jacked, just like buff as hell. So now instead of picturing her as Rapunzel from Tangled, I'm picturing her as that lady. Yeah, I'm wearing the same sweats that I was yesterday. I don't want to talk about it. Our little squad is trying to go from town to town to collect all of the magical items. They already have the coin from Rory, which happened pre-book. And then they got the ink pot from the scribe at the beginning-ish of the story. All they need left is the loom, the ore, and the chime. So their first stop is to get the ore. And then at the end of this, of course, they're gonna have to fight the big boss, which is Mother Abbess herself, the Moth. This little section right here was about the ore. They meet the ore man. He challenges 6 to a fight. She trains, she fights, She wins, but then she dies, but then she doesn't die. Six wakes up at Maud's house, the motherly soldier woman of the found family. And I don't really know where she's gonna go from here because this mission kind of destroyed her motivation. I don't even want to say it out loud, it's really kind of disturbing, but apparently the abbess kind of lied, big shocker, about what happens after a diviner serves their 10-year term at the cathedral. They are told that they get to walk free in the world and live a new life as like a normal person, but in reality, they get killed and their body gets sent to the omens so that the omens can drink their blood. It's nasty work. It's really vile. And now that Six knows that her sisters are all dead, I don't know what's gonna spur her forward. Let's find out, because now we have to go after the chime. The chiming wood. Can't say I've ever read a book where somebody gets tracked through the woods with their period blood. Wait, it's turned into something really cute because she told him her name. Oh, she can be Sybil now. We've known from pretty much the beginning that her name is Sybil Delling, but she goes by Six, so I've been calling her Six, and I think she really identified as Six. But now she's Sybil. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Her sisters are dead, and she's Sybil Delling again. I don't think I really explained it, but the omen who had control over the chime is already dead because Maud killed her years and years ago when she was working for the baby king's grandfather. We don't really need to get into the weeds of that lore, but what we know is that she killed the omen and then couldn't find the chime. So now they're going back to the woods to find the chime, or they already did. And they found it, and it was kind of like this big drug party. The ceremony got ambushed by some forest monsters, the tree sprites. Rory and Six took them down no problem, and they got the chime and ran away, and Maud got crushed by a tree, but she's fine. And then Six got to become a real knight. There's some tension though. Actually, let's talk about this for a second. Little bit of found family group tension going on because baby Benji, who once again is a 17-year-old king, wants to be respected and wants to be a good king and bring honor to his family name, and does also kind of realize that a lot about being a king and the government and the system that they have in place right now is corrupt because not only of what he's seen, but what his friends, Rory and Maud, have gone through. And he's also an angsty teen, so he's just kind of a total mess. And he really likes that Six, or Sybil, I feel like I should call her Sybil now, he really likes that having Sybil at his side makes people respect him because she, as a diviner, is the representation of the faith that the common people have in their gods. But we know that that's a false faith, and so Benji wants to cling on to the power that that gives him while also fighting against the system, and it's kind of tearing him apart a little bit. And so he's like, yeah, sure, Sybil, I'll turn you into a knight, but you also have to be my diviner still because that's what gives me power and respect when I walk into a room. And Rory and Maud are like, that's not how it works, kid. We're not gonna control people and force them to do and be what they are not and what they don't want to be, because that's been the problem this whole time. And he's like, yeah, I get that, but like, can you please just do it? Yeah. He's 17, all right. Rory and Sybil are officially at the lovers stage in their enemies to lovers journey. It's not really enemies to lovers, like they aren't actual enemies of each other or anything, but it's kind of like hate to love. They don't get along at first, and now they do. Now they really, really do. Oh my god! And the last big reveal so far in the wood chimes section is that Sybil took off her shroud and looked at her own eyes, and they are made of stone! But Rory's into it. So I think she's gonna learn to love herself. I also want to insert here that there's something that I'm really nervous this book is gonna do that I really don't want it to do, because we are tearing through this journey. We only have one more magical item to get, and then the big boss battle with the abbess. And I did not think that all of that would happen in this first book, which makes me nervous that this book is the entire story of Rory and Sybil, and that the next books in the series will not be following their story so much as it will somebody else's in the bigger kingdom. It either has to crack wide open into some huge major conflict that we never could have seen coming, or the next book in this series is not going to follow these characters. Sorry, not to be like a whiny baby, but I really wanted like a in-depth fantasy series out of Miss Rachel Gillig because she can do that. Not everybody can do that, and I know that she can, so I want it. Something that's been running through the background of the story that I haven't really mentioned so far are these creatures that inhabit the world called sprites. And the general consensus on the sprites are that they are evil monsters that just want to eat flesh. But then over and over again through the story, people like Sybil, the main character, sees these sprites and is like, they're just hungry. But the things that these sprites are hungry for are resources that these societies use for themselves, so they're not feeding the sprites with the resources when they could be using it instead. And I mention it now because I didn't really care that much about it as a subplot, not because it wasn't good or anything, but because it's kind of just been there as groundwork. Like, it's leading to the greater message of, you know, we should give up our resources to help the ecosystems that we live with at large. But Miss Maud, who is still injured from the fight with the tree spirits and is a knight and a killer and a believer of being noble and all of these things that knights uphold as values, is giving our girl Sybil this wonderful little speech that I wanted to share with you, okay? Because she's still injured and they're traveling to the next area for the loom, Sybil is a little bit worried about her and she asks if Maud is doing all right, and Maud is like, yeah, but I feel like a fool. She says, we grew up searching our guardians for what is right and what is true, thinking they have all the answers, like they already understand the signs of life. But they don't. No one does. I see how Benji is, desperate to achieve what his grandfather could not. How you are, fighting to unstitch all the lies the abbess sewed into you. And while I am a hunter, a killer, like all Bower women, I should have looked harder at myself and less at them. I really like this first section of the speech that I just read to you because it digs into this facet of that conversation that's like, part of the reason we're not spreading the wealth is because we didn't realize what we were doing wrong in the past, or that what we were doing was wrong. And maybe if we focused a little bit more on the reality of our present instead of trying to live up to expectations or generational cycles, then we could make a positive change. And I think that is a really great part of this conversation to focus on. So, love it, love it. I love you, Maud. I love you, Maud. Not to stay in this moment for too long, but this is beautifully written because then Maud says, it's hard to see who I am when I am lost in what's expected of me. And Sybil takes that in and she thinks, if it would not pain her, I'd lay my head on Maud's lap and let her tears fall onto my face because it would cleanse something in me no spring water ever had. To feel so unclean that you think laying in someone's lap and letting their righteous tears fall onto your face would heal something in you? Oh my god. This might be my favorite passage in the whole book so far. Bartholomew! I'm gonna go back and explain, but I have fucking chills. He literally is saying the thing that is the preface to the book. It's little Bartholomew. We need to catch up. Holy! The loom omen, who's known as the heart-sworn weaver. I feel like I'm saying gibberish words at you right now, but it's so good. She is my favorite of the omens by far. I think that's kind of the intention, but the way that the whole section was written, this is some of my favorite part of the book so far. Oh my god. Because even from the very beginning, when Sybil was doing her divination dreaming, this part of the dream when she got to the loom section was always the scariest to her, the weirdest, the most different. And this whole section is really connected to moths. Like, there are moths everywhere. And Sybil herself is falling in love at the moment, and so she's really mixed up in all of the magic of it all and like the general theme of this section. It's just so awesome. Something a little less awesome fun, but still really awesome to have in the book, is that we got to see one of Sybil's dead divination sisters. It's definitely not a happy moment, but to be honest, once we learned that all of the diviners ended up dying and being sent out to the omens, I kind of thought we were just done with them. Like, Sybil was gonna think about them and be sad about them, but we were moving on to the next section of the story, since now her new motivation is anger because of what happens to her sisters. But having Sybil have to see the proof of this, have to see one of her sisters gone, wow. And then what followed was even crazier. The lore is so insane. Because then the Heartsworn Weaver comes into town, and she's basically a gargoyle. She's made out of stone, and Sybil's like, something weird is happening here. Can you please not drink the blood of my dead sister, maybe? And the Heartsworn Weaver says, ooh, gross. I never partook in that. So you're like, yes, queen. Love you, girl. And then she's like, hey, I'll tell you where the loom is if you kill me. I actually want you to kill me. I want to be dead. So Sybil graces her with the end of her life using her hammer and chisel. And we find out that the loom, which is the last magical object that they need, is back at the cathedral, which we knew we were gonna end the story at the cathedral anyway, you know what I mean? But then the biggest lore drop is that this Heartsworn Weaver, who's basically turned into a gargoyle, explains how the gargoyles are made. They're not just sprites like the other monsters in this story, like we've been told so far. They are people that have drunk from the magical spring at the cathedral and then were not allowed to have any more of the spring water. Then they were starved of the spring water, so they slowly became the stone that surrounds the spring. Hence the gargoyle-ness about them. They turn into stone. Which means that our loving little gargoyle, who I mistakenly called a pet earlier, is not a pet. Turns out, he's the first ever diviner. I'm gonna cry. And the reason he calls everyone Bartholomew is because he refused to forget his own name, Bartholomew. So now we have the true story of what actually happened at the beginning of all of this from Bartholomew himself, which I'm so glad we have, because as soon as we got the real story from Benji's lore drop way earlier, I was like, I believe you. I believe that the gods are not what Sybil has always thought them to be, but there's no way that this like grandfatherly king that wrote this down in a journal and passed it down to his 17-year-old successor was the one that's completely right about everything, you know? Way back in the day, the abbess discovered that she could bring people back to life with the magical spring water. She discovered this, of course, with our little baby Bartholomew. So then when there was a little bit of strife in the kingdom, 5 individuals vying for power end up killing each other so none of them can rule, she sees an opportunity. She brings each of the 5 of them back to life using the spring water, and then she fashions them each a tool out of the magical stone. Hence, we have the coin, the ink pot, the loom, the chime, and the oar. And the abbess tells these 5 people that they are gods, and they don't know any different, because once you're brought back to life, you forget who you were before. This creates another opportunity for the abbess, because now she has people that think they are gods because she created them. She has Bartholomew, who is obedient and can be pushed into the spring and drowned and see visions that she creates for him. She's the one who shows the diviners whatever she wants them to see every time she drowns them. So she can create false images, false gods, and surround all of that with a cathedral that brings in money from the entire kingdom and gives her ultimate power. Wow. Little baby Bartholomew, who was an actual child, started to not be this like perfect little diviner prince that the abbess wanted him to be. So she starved him of the spring water. He turned into a gargoyle. She saw, OMG, another opportunity. I can create a bunch of gargoyles out of all of my favorite diviners, and then they will serve me forever. And so every time she gets a little pack of 6 diviner girls, she gives one of them, the most obedient one, a hammer and a chisel. and she will then eventually turn them into a gargoyle. So she was basically gonna kill Sybil this entire time. At this point, we knew already that the abbess was the mastermind behind all of this, but we didn't know the extent to which she controlled and created this entire religion just for herself. It's incredible. It's insane. I'm heartbroken. Little baby Bartholomew is my favorite. And I'm so glad that we got the true story, and now we can go kill this bitch. Sorry. Had to get some popcorn for the finale. There's only 20 pages left. How can this end in 20 pages? Benji, no. He gave the damn money to Hamlin? Oh, Benji, you're dead to me. Really? Rory and Sybil can't enjoy a little night in the sand? So you had to give everybody else that's evil money? Nasty work. Wow. That's how you end it in 20 pages. First thought, I was so wrong. There's more to this story. Sybil, Rory, Maud, Benji, even Bartholomew. They've got a long way to go. This almost felt like reading an origin story. I feel like everything that was jam-packed into this book would usually be the entire story across like a 3-book arc, and it just all happened. I gotta say it again. In the last 20 pages of this book, we have the big battle at the cathedral. Gargoyles are fighting. The abbess is trying to drown Sybil. Sybil uses her hammer and chisel to smash the abbess into a million pieces. And we have our little hodgepodge family destroying this cathedral that has been oppressing their kingdom for centuries. It's awesome. But the real treat at the end is the betrayal of Benji. Like, clearly Benji was going down a bad path, but to do this? I mean, you literally saw it when he turns to stab Rory in the stomach. I started to cry. And now we have the setup for the next book because Sybil is about to become Benji's queen. Ew. And Rory, Maud, and Bartholomew have been banished. How long do we all think that's gonna last? But that's it. It just ends with that gut punch. And I genuinely feel sick to my stomach. I think if you like the One Dark Window duology, then you'll really like this book because it has all of that Rachel Gillig charm, but it's truly just bigger and better. I've seen a lot of people talking about how Romantasy just hasn't been good recently because it feels like publishers are just pushing out these books that are messy and lack editing and depth just to give people books with the tropes that they're looking for and cash in on that money. And this is not that. The world that she's built is really big and full, and the characters are fresh and fun, and the writing is even better than in her previous duology. And even in the interview that's in the back of this book, when Gillig is asked about writing love interests, I think she just flat out says what one of the really big problems is with these Romantasy books that are just getting pushed out. The interviewer asks, what do you think is the secret to writing a compelling love interest? And Gillig says, your love interest doesn't know they're a love interest. They aren't standing in shadow or being bothersome in hopes that someone will make a swoony aesthetic of them. That's literally the problem. You need to have substance for characters to be interesting. And there were a ton of surprises in the book that were really satisfying. Like, I fully thought that Sybil was gonna be the moth, and it turns out that she's kind of just like symbolically a moth. And like I said, even though I thought it was clear that Benji was going in a bad direction, I don't, if anybody else guessed exactly what was gonna happen, you must be a genius. I was blown out of the water. I did not see that coming. Stabbing Rory? Really? Unfortunately, I am still me, so I have a couple critiques that are really small and nitpicky, and the first one that I have to get off my chest, the word ignoble is used in this book. It has to be over 20 times. It was being used so often, like multiple times on the same page, to the point where I was waiting for them to make a joke about it. I don't even think that that's the author's fault. Why didn't anybody say, hey, the word ignoble is used so many times. And then once again, because I do think that even though I love Romantasy, I really like a subtle rise into romance. Sometimes the romance in this story was like a little bit cheeky for me. a little bit too cheeky. But overall, I really enjoyed it. So I can't even actually nitpick there. I love Rory. I love Rory and Sybil. They're such a unique pairing. Sybil was like such a refreshing main character. She actually had so much personality in this really cool exploration that she goes through of like femininity and masculinity and who she is and what she likes. And I don't know, I just thought that her personality was so clear. And I loved it, and I love her, and I love them together. If I don't stop now, I will talk about this book forever. This was a journey. I don't even know what rating I'd give this book yet. I think I'm still living inside of it, but I just had the absolute best time reading, and I'm gonna think about it forever, and I don't want to wait a whole year for another book. I think we should petition Rachel Gillig to write 100,000 million romantasy books and to send them all to me.